Good evening, folks. Welcome back to another Monday night live stream. Hope everybody's well. Hope you had a lovely weekend. And I will say it is absolutely blazing outside. It's like an oven in here. So if you see me visibly melting as the live stream goes on, I do apologise. But yeah, please cut me some slack. I've got the water tonight just to kind of try and keep me cool a little bit. Had a bit of a hectic evening tonight. I went off to work this morning. I was working in Manchester today. So just the 165-mile round trip today, or actually big 320-mile round trip. So I set off about 6 o'clock this morning. I got back in the house about 8 o'clock tonight. So I rushed in, set the computer up, put the camera on, try to have some food. So yeah, I'm a little bit out of breath, but we're all here. Looks like we've got a good crowd in tonight as well. Thank you to everybody that's in the chat tonight. If we've got any new people in, first time here, please let me know in the chat. Always good to see some new names and some new faces in as well. So let's have a look and see who we've got. Mark was in nice and early. 7 o'clock, Mark. Knock, knock. Nice to see you in, mate. Voltmans was in as well. Paul Palms is around. Phil Wilkinson's in. Good evening to you lot. Christian's in as well. Good evening, Christian. Nice to see you in, buddy, nice and early. Mark from Dice Tales is in as well. Good evening, mate. Robert Zung said he's in the car heading home, but I'm here. Thank you very much, Robert. All the way from the US there. Steve Evans is in as well. Good evening, Steve. I saw your photos on the Dread Ball weekend. Hope you had a good weekend, mate. A good day. We've got Jim Bob's Hobby Vlog Firth Hayden in as well. Nice to see you, buddy. I think it's the first time I've seen your name. Johnny Jambo is in as well. Good evening, buddy. Who else have we got? Paul Welch is in as well. Paul, I saw you. You sent me a message while I was driving home from Manchester. Not had a chance to read it yet, mate, but I'll check it after the stream. Tabletop Battlezone is in as well. Good evening, Tabletop Battlezone. He says GW's holding some of his family members hostage. Is that why I'm going to give it some kind of semi-positive review or something like that? Once I say nice things, they release them one at a time. Claudio is in as well. Good evening, Claudio. The Dice Tales there saying, shit, it's starting. We've got VJ in as well. Good morning, VJ. How are you doing, my friend? Richard Dean's in as well. He says, the Geordie man is live. How are you, man? How are you, man, indeed, buddy. Let me know as well, folks. I've got a different microphone on tonight. I thought I'd try something a little bit different. Because when it gets a little bit hot, the little lapel mic gets a bit scratchy and stuff. So let me know if the sound's okay, if it's loud enough and all that kind of stuff. Because it's the first time I've used it on the stream. We've got, where are we at? We've got Flying Mammal in. Says, hi from me and Munch. Good evening, you two. We got Kyle in as well. Good evening, Kyle. How are you doing, mate? Nice to see you here. I haven't seen you in a little while. We got Glenn in as well. Good evening, Glenn Griffin. VJ saying, ouch, long day. Yeah, they're not all like that, thankfully, but today's been one of them days. There was a bit of traffic getting out of Manchester, and then there was an accident as well on the M62, so it's taken me nearly 4 hours to get home tonight, which is not great. We got Rui in as well. Good evening, Rui. We've got Craig Lowther in as well. Good evening, Craig. We've got Jamie in there as well. Devious2K. He says he's new. He's not new. Jamie is the guy I played my demo of Warcry with at the weekend at Asgard War Games in Stockton. If anybody is local to there or they're checking them out, they've got a good deal at the minute. For all I've got an affiliate link with Element, I have to say Asgard have got a better price. So there you go. Go and check out Asgard War Games. If you do decide to pre-order this, they've got 25% off pre-orders this week only. Or certainly, I say this week, it might be up to launch, I think. Let's have a look. We got Tabletop Battlezone says, first time for a live one, but always watch afterwards. Thank you very much, buddy. Nice that you tuned in. Then I've got my wife saying, oh, that's what you look like. I think she's downstairs or she's in another room. I kind of just rushed past her, came and set everything up while she was cooking my dinner. We sat for literally about 3 minutes sitting together while I was eating, and then I dove in the shower and got sorted and stuff. So, Voltmans is Jamie Snow. I never realised that, mate. Now I know it's you, buddy. I'll have to try and remember that now. Thank you very much. We've got Wayne Bellamy in as well. Good evening, Wayne. Thank you for joining the live stream. We've got Hans in as well. Good evening, Hans. Thank you for joining as well. We've got Nick Moore in as well. Nice to see you, Nick. We've got Reluctant Artie in. Good evening, Douglas. How you doing, fella? Where else are we at? We've got Tim. Oh, it's jumping around a little bit. We've got Tim in as well. We've got Richard, we spoke about. Kieran's in. We've got Lee in. We've got Matt Mountain in as well. He said, missed you on Saturday. Yeah, sorry, buddy. A bit of a last minute change of plans. I couldn't quite make it. I wasn't going to get down until very late in the day. And one of the reasons I was going to try and get my game with Paul in as well, from TNG. He had to leave early. So it kind of got to a point where it probably wasn't worth me making that that like 6-hour round trip down to Nottingham on Saturday. So, Christian saying, don't forget to hit the like button. Thank you, Christian. We've got Gav Moorcrofton as well. Says, first timer, don't need that accident. Sound is spot on. Thank you, buddy. Thanks for the feedback and welcome to the chat. We've got Robert's wife is saying hi to everybody. Harjinder's in as well. He says, hey, dude, hope you're well. I'm not bad, thanks, mate. I've got a bit of kind of, I've wolfed my dinner down and I'm feeling a little bit full. So hopefully it doesn't come back up. You should be all right. Alan's in as well. Good evening, Alan. We've got Green Tree. Devious 2 cases. It's in Middlesbrough. Why did I think it was Stockton, mate? There you go. It's in Middlesbrough anyway. We've got Richard in. Good evening, buddy. He says, twist my arm at the China GW game. I'll try, mate. Paulie P's in as well. And Malkavian coming in as well. So, folks, I think we kind of caught with a lot of people that are in the chat. Anybody that hasn't commented, thank you for joining us tonight. Tonight, as if you haven't already guessed, I'm going to be talking about Warcry, the new game from Games Workshop that was went up for pre-order on Saturday just gone and will launch on, is it Saturday the 2nd or the 3rd of August? That's when you'll be able to pick it up from your local stores, assuming that they've got plenty in there. One of the reasons is I want to kind of give my opinion on the game. I have now read all of the rules. I have played a demo game of it as well, so I feel like I'm in a better place where I can kind of tell you what I think about it. I also really, and you'll have seen this from the title of the video, I've changed my mind about the game. So anybody that is a regular on the live stream will know that I decided I was going to hold off on this one. Got a little bit, not burned so much with Kill Team, but it turned into something that I didn't really want it to turn into, if you like. I was really excited for Kill Team at first, and then it kind of twisted into something a little bit different over time. And I was going to hold off on this one, kind of see how it went. We had a bit chat last week about, you know, I might get it, you know, just for content for the channel, that kind of stuff. And, excuse me, and then the rules were leaked during the week. So whoever leaked the rules, thank you very much. I know it's not always what GW want to hear, but actually the reading the rules gave me a very, very different perspective. And once I'd read them, I'd pretty much changed my mind. I'd done a complete 180, and I was in a much better position knowing more about the game, that I really knew it was a game that I was more interested in now. I then decided, a bit of a last minute thing, Saturday morning, decided to go down to Asgard War Games and have a demo of the game. Jamie and the guys down there had spent pretty much all of Friday night painting all of the scenery, painting the miniatures. So when I got down there for a demo on Saturday, the table looked fantastic. A lot of the pictures I've seen of demos was pretty much grey plastic due to the amount of time people had. So bear in mind that maybe I'm swayed because it looked attractive as well. But I guess that your game will be as well when you get to it. So I'm going to be talking about that tonight. I'm also going to be kind of basing my comments tonight as well on the video that Ash did from Guerrilla Miniature Games. So if anybody doesn't know Guerrilla Miniature Games, I'm pretty sure everybody will. He started doing a thing on a Sunday, which is kind of like a Let's Talk thing. And he and Owen from Gaming with the Cooler, who's quite often on the Guerrilla Miniature Games channel, talked about what they thought of Warcry. And there's been some mixed comments, I would say, about their review. Now, I think that video review is about an hour long. It's had something like 22,000 views in 3 days. And it's... is that one? One of them's had... I think it's had 22,000 views. And some of their comments were... I wouldn't say they were negative, but they were definitely weighted towards... certainly from Owen's point of view, it's not the game he wanted it to be. And I think that clouded his kind of opinion of the game a little bit from a viewer's point of view, if you like. So I'm going to try and base it around their structure to try and give a bit of a counter argument or a bit of I wouldn't say to balance it, but just to give a different opinion, but around that kind of same structure. So let's very briefly just have a look and see who we've got here. Brandon Waiton as well. Good evening, Brandon. Says, can't wait to hear your thoughts on Warcry. Thanks for sharing. I've been really debating between this and Necromunda. Right, if I don't pick up Necromunda as we're chatting, give me a nudge, remind me about it, because there's some comparisons I want to make, and then there's some very big differences as well. VJ says he's still not overly keen on the Chaos War bands. Andy Smith is in as well, says greetings from Chesterfield. Paul's in as well, says evening all. Evening, Paul. So Kevin saying interested to hear folks' thoughts on the topic tonight. Yes. and where we at as well. Pete and Nicholas are saying, hoping to learn whether to start Warcry or continue starting Vanguard. So, what I'll say tonight is, normally I kind of interact with the chat a lot more, but I want to keep on topic tonight. I've got loads of thoughts and opinions and kind of things I want to try and get out. If you've got something you desperately want to tell me, if you at BlackJack Legacy, it'll highlight in the chat and I'll try and pick it up. But make sure you chat amongst yourselves as well and give your opinions or what you think of what I'm saying, because it always helps when people watch it back later and I can try and catch up with that as well. So, as I said, I have read the rules, so I'm pretty au fait with them now, and I have played game of it as well, so I do understand how it actually physically plays on the tabletop. And where Ash started with his was, actually I took a little picture of the topics, the order they were in. Let's have a quick look so I don't get off track a little bit. So he started talking, and I very, very quickly managed to get kind of some links up with some pictures and the website as well, so we'll try and share them as we go. So he started talking first of all about product design and about the components in the box. What did he think of the bits and pieces? So what did I think? I think the box, I mean, visually on first inspection, looks really good value for money. Certainly from a UK perspective, I can't say sort of an opinion from a US dollars or from an Australian dollars or anything like that, from euros, but from a Great British pound sort of perspective, I don't think £100 is actually bad for what you get in that box. The box is exactly the same size as Kill Team. So if anybody's familiar with the Kill Team box, it's physically the same dimensions. You get a lot of scenery in there. You get a double-sided board in there. You get 18 dice, I think it is, in there as well. You get all of the cards for the different war bands. You get the battle plan cards as well, which I'll come on to because I think they're an important part. What else do you get that's in there that I've not mentioned? You get the scenery, you get the dice, you obviously get the rule book as well. I forgot about that bit. But you get an awful lot of stuff in that box for the money. Quality-wise, I think the scenery looks absolutely fantastic. And as I said, Jamie and the guys at Asgard War Games had built it up and painted it, and it looked fantastic. So maybe I was swayed a little bit by that. However, it looks like it's very simple to paint up. Nothing that a kind of a spray paint of a base colour, get like a coloured spray can from GW or something like a grey or something like that, or maybe even like a greeny colour. A wash over the top and a dry brush, and this will look fantastic. It really does kind of pick up texture really well. Maybe even contrast paint because there's so much kind of definition to it. So that's definitely kind of a plus point. The miniatures themselves, I don't know if I mentioned you actually get the war bands in there. The miniatures themselves, there is the Untamed Beasts faction and there is the Iron Golems faction. The Iron Golems are the kind of red, very heavily armoured guys. The Untamed Beasts are the ones that look a little bit like kind of Conan the Barbarian type thing. And the miniatures, it's Games Workshop. They're going to be fantastic quality. Of course they are. One thing that Owen and Ash really picked up on was they're not customizable. Now I want to kind of say from the off, really, I'm not much of a kit basher. Building the models is actually the bit I enjoy the least from a miniature game and hobby. So I tend not to worry too much about customization. If you're really into customization, you'll have noticed over time that Games Workshop are moving more and more away from multi-pose models, so where the arms are separate and you can kind of pose them however you want. They get very much more now 3D sculpted, and the cuts allow you to make sure you get a really nice fit, and they tend to hide the mold lines and the joins underneath kind of capes and fur and stuff. So if you're buying this game with the intention of being able to kind of sort of use different poses and that kind of stuff, you're probably going to be a bit disappointed in that. But for me personally, it's a positive. The miniatures go together really well. They look great on the table. There's a few things like kind of, I think it's the bolus kind of chains around one of the guys' heads. There's a whip on one of the other models that look a little bit kind of, you know, like they're going to pop off at some point maybe if you're a bit kind of heavy-handed with them. But I guess that's common with a lot of Games Workshop miniatures these days as well. But the sculpts are fantastic. And I was impressed to see you got all those beasts in there as well. The kind of not the untamed beasts, whatever they're called, the kind of the beasts that you can bring in through campaigns and stuff. It was really good to kind of see that. I've just seen their VJ saying the Warcry playthrough was definitely a clincher for me. I really like the initiative power up mechanic. Yeah, we'll come on to that in a little bit. The cards I think are a really good addition. So if I can, let's see if I can get this up while we're chatting. The cards which actually come for the different players. Where are we at? It's playing up. Of course it's playing up. Of course it's playing up. There they are. Let's go to this one. So these are your player cards. You'll see in the top left-hand corner. Oh, one thing I should mention is it's all symbols. There's no text on the actual player card. Top left of that kind of the circle at the top that's split into three. The one with the arrow is your movement. So this character has a 5-inch movement. The right of it is your toughness. So this character has a toughness of 4. And then the one with the skull is your wounds. That's how many wounds your character's got. So you'll notice wounds are a lot more increased, and that's because of the no save rule, which we'll come to later. And then you've got the 2 different weapons that this character has. Shows you the first one's kind of like a staff or a club of some kind. The other one's a ball and chain. The second row there, if you like, is the range. So range of 1 or range of 3. The next number is the amount of dice that you're rolling. Is it? Yeah, it's the amount of dice that you're rolling. So the sort of like the power of it, if you like. The next one is the strength of the weapon, and in this game you compare strength against toughness. And then the next one with the skull with the kind of slash to it, the first number is how much damage it does for a normal hit, and the second number after the slash is how much damage it does on a 6 or a critical hit. And then you've got a picture of the actual model itself. And again, Ash and Owen didn't like the fact that it's got a picture of the model. They were saying, well, you know, that's just it. But for me, as somebody that I prefer a game that I don't need to kind of overthink the rules. I prefer to kind of to concentrate on the game rather than concentrate on remembering rules. So maybe this game's aimed more at me than it is at those guys. But being able to see the model on the card and then being able to see the model on the tabletop just sort of makes it really easy for me to know exactly which model is which. And I really like that. The only thing I would say is that there are some models where there's kind of 3 of them with very slightly different poses, but you only get 1 card for those 3 models because they've all got the same stat. Now, I would have liked to have seen a card for each of the different poses, and not because it's difficult to kind of see they're all from the same kind of little group, but more one of the mechanics of the game is you split your group up at deployment between dagger, shield, and hammer. And what I did was when we played, I lined my cards up so into like sort of 3s. So there's my dagger. There's my shield, there's my hammer, and I didn't think you had to track these through the game, but some of the scenario win conditions is if you've killed all of the models in the dagger, for example. Now, that makes it really hard to split your characters between the different kind of deployments if you've only got 1 card. So it's not a kind of, it doesn't break the game if you like, but it would have been nice if just every model had a card. I would have liked to have seen that. VJ says, do you listen to the latest Stormcast? They had Maxine the designer. I haven't listened to that yet, mate. And John there saying, give the ladies a whip a good tug, one from the open day, and it's really rugged. Looks like it might not break off so easily then. So yeah, and as you can see, that model is like 125 points. A warband is 1,000 points. So that's roughly the kind of thing that we're looking at. Now let me see if I can do some jiggery pokery here and get some pictures changing as well. So inside, let me have a quick look here. Inside the battle plans as well, you'll get here what is basically a deployment, and this will tell you how to set up your scenery that you get in the box. And if I can, let's see if I can click to the other screen. Of course, it's not playing ball, is it? Yeah. Let's not worry about it. That's what it looks like anyway. You basically you draw a deployment card. You draw which is where your miniatures and your opponent's miniatures will deploy on the board. You draw a scenery card, which shows you how to set up the scenery for the game. You draw a card that has your victory conditions, and you draw a card which has a twist on it, and it kind of adds a bit of a twist to the story of the game that you're playing. Now this I really, really like. These contents all come in the box. You can buy them separate if you're not buying the starter box, if you're just buying the rule book. You can buy the battle plan cards. I'm trying to see if I can. For some reason, this isn't playing ball, and it's not letting me. Oh, there we go. We might get it now. If I can go. There they are. Let's go back to that one. So there they are now. So you can see top left. If I can get my mouse on it, and you can see it. Top left here is your deployment. Is your scenery cards, your deployment, and the twist card there, and the victory conditions. So this again, I think, is a really, really good mechanic. It's something that that Owen and Ash really liked as well. And I think I remember reading on the GW website there are over like 1 million combinations because there are so many cards in the deck. I think there's like 35 cards in each deck, something like that. And there's got lots of different combinations of those cards. So that's kind of the components. The tokens you get in, tokens are good quality. If you've played Kill Team, you'll know the token, the expectation of the quality you're going to get. The guys made a comment about, if I can go back to the main camera now, the guys made a comment about there not being enough dice in the box. And I would say 6 more dice would have been helpful, because what you do is you take your 6 dice and you roll for your hero phase to see what kind of power-ups you get. And you then set those dice to one side. Your opponent does that with their 6 dice, and then that leaves 6 dice over to be rolling for combat. However, you use some of those dice that's left over as like wild dice that you can add to your hero dice, if you like. And 6 more dice would have been useful, but I guess unless you're coming at this completely new, most people will have dice. Not necessarily the end of the world, but would have been a nice upgrade. I do agree with Ash and Owen on that one. But from the contents of the box, I'm really happy with what you get for the money. So if I'm doing what they're doing and I'm giving it a score out of 5, I'd give that a 4 as well. 5 would have to have been absolutely perfect. I think as well, would I give it a 5? I give it a 4.5, I'd say. Nothing's perfect. Of course, it's more expensive than I'd like it to be, but I think it's value for money. I think you're getting what, in my opinion, I think you're getting your money's worth out of it. There's cards I would have liked to have seen. There's things like there's only one kind of quick start guide. Would have been good if there was kind of 2. Those kind of things. But I'd probably give it about a 4.5 for that kind of stuff. So let's have a quick look and see what kind of stuff we've got going in the chat. We've got Luke Snelling as well. Good evening, Luke. Anyone else very disappointed that only Vanguard are available for the Stormcast? Let me come on to that. Remind me, Luke, because I've got some feelings about the non-Chaos Warbands. Douglas is saying a reviewer said there'll be huge creatures models. It mentions in the book about, is it like Gargantuans or something like that? The name is something like that. And we haven't seen any of those models yet. So it'll be interesting to see what comes. What else we got? We got Flip Movie Maker in as well. Says good evening. Hello to you, buddy. Jamie is saying each scenery set also has its own set of cards unique to that set. Yeah, it's a good point. So if you buy the Mausoleum set, it will come with its own scenery cards as well. We've got Marcus Hunting as well. Good evening, Marcus. He says, hope you're well, mate. And he's impressed at the expansion card packs for existing armies as well. So yes, let's have a quick look in my list. That was kind of product design. Maybe I've kind of bridged over into something. We've also got a new member as well. Thank you very much, Marcus Hunt, for joining the member there. Really nice to have you on board. Yes, sorry, what was the next one? That threw me there. Game design. So this is where it gets a little bit contentious, I think. And one of the big things that both Owen and Ash talked about was the fact that it is kind of move, and then move, attack kind of thing. And to an extent, they're right. But then I guess you could say to an extent that's most games. You kind of, if you play, maybe not kind of 40k and stuff, but even Kill Team really was, you move, you shoot, you attack, hand-to-hand combat, that kind of stuff. It's not that dissimilar. I think when you start putting in saving dice and injury rolls like you did in Kill Team, you give the illusion that the opponent has more control over the game. But the fact that you have a lot less wounds, like 1 wound for a lot of things in Kill Team, actually you don't have that much control over it. What they've done here is they've really streamlined the dice mechanic. So it is literally the strength of your weapon versus the toughness of your opponent. If you have the same toughness, it's a 4. If you have If your strength is more than the toughness, then it's a 3-up. And if your strength is less than the opponent's toughness, then it is a 5-up. So it's a really, really simple mechanic. There's a little bit in there about cover as well, but I won't touch on that now to confuse things. That's it. You roll a dice. If you get a 5-up, then you've hit, and you do whatever damage was on that card. That's why the models have a lot higher wounds. I saw there's one character has like 30 wounds, so he's going to really take some taking down. Some characters have about 9 or 10, I think, off the top of my head. I think the average is about 10. So it's there are chances where you might get one-shotted off the board. But you had that in Kill Team. You have that in a lot of games. One lucky shot with a couple of criticals or something like that. And one thing they said was, it is very much about it's about the maths of the game, if you like. If you take more models, you get more actions. Therefore, you can beat your opponent because you physically have more actions to take. And to an extent, they're right. So if the maximum amount of models you can take is 15, so that is going to kind of limit that a little bit. The minimum amount you can take is 3. So if you've got 3 models and your opponent's got 15 models, they're going to be able to do a lot more things. However, their models are going to cost a lot less in points in order to get them all into a 1,000-point warband. And my assumption is they'll be doing a lot less damage. And your 3 models will probably be beasts. So there is a balancing mechanic in that. The other thing is as well that I've noticed, thinking about it today on my drive back, is actually the 6 warbands that we've seen so far. So Iron Golems, here's where I embarrass myself now. Iron Golems, Untamed Beasts, Splintered Fang, Corvus Cabal, the Unmade, and whatever the other one is, I forget now. They've all got about 8 or 9 models in that box, in those boxes. So out of the box, you're not really going to be kind of out pointing, if you like, from a model count point of view. You're not really going to be sort of doing a lot more actions than your opponent. Now, yes, I'm sure we can kind of go down the route of like, well, I'm going to take a leader, and then I'm going to take as many of the cheapest models I can get just to see what happens. But that's going to force you to buy multiple boxes, and it's going to mean you have multiples of the same model as well. And maybe that's not really what the game's intended as. Maybe you can go to that extreme of kind of math hammering the game and the win at all cost kind of thing. But out of the box, they're relatively balanced from a numbers point of view. Now that makes me think that in the future, are they going to kind of add single models? So a little bit like they did for Blood Bowl, where you buy your team and then you can maybe buy like a captain model or a hero model or like the ogre or something like that. Where you can then start to interchange things. So if I take these 2 models out, I can put this one big guy in. Or if I take these 2 big guys out, I can put 4 of these new ones in. I think we're trying to understand the game, and we haven't seen the entire kind of the way it's going to release it, exactly what the model's going to be for this game. It's a brand new game. It's not like any other GW game. That could mean that the release schedule is not like any other GW game either. So maybe after they've done all 9 of the Chaos Warbands, maybe we'll see another box for each of the 9 Chaos Warbands that lets you start to kind of pick and change. Think a little bit, if anybody's familiar with Guild Ball, think a little bit along those lines where there was the initial kind of like 6 or 7 models, and then next season a few new ones came in that made you start to pick and choose and take them out. And I almost think that's where it starts to look a little bit like Shadespire, where you kind of almost have your fixed warband. Now, purely guessing here, almost like, are the points almost irrelevant a little bit? If you're just playing box versus box, is it automatically already kind of balanced? Oh, I see it balanced. Is it like, are they even out of the box? Is that something that it is? And then over time, we're maybe going to add extra stuff to it. I don't know, just spitballing ideas. But technically what Owen and Ash said about more models means more actions is right. But I think I don't think that's the way the game's going to end up going, if I'm honest. Because I don't think it's going to become very expensive to do it, because you'll have to buy multiple boxes to be able to do that. Or people will start proxying things in and stuff or whatever. But I think there's going to be a different release schedule to it, if I'm honest. Jamie says, what do they want? To have a campfire mini game in the middle? We played a game later where we're both hunting the beasts. Yeah, I think there's a lot of differences in the game, actually. Because of the different scenarios, because of the different wind conditions, because of the different deployments, and some models, I forgot to mention in the deployment cards, is you split your warband up into your dagger, hammer, and shield. They can come on at different turns. So when Jamie and I played, our dagger sort of detachment didn't come on until turn 2, and they came on at a completely different side of the board as the original guys came on. So the mechanics, I think it's a streamlined, it's an easier mechanic. It's set up for people very much like me who don't want to have to kind of sort of retain a million rules in my head. I can just get into the game and play it. It's very, very simple to play. But the tactics are in the actual game itself. So, as an example, if you move in and then attack your enemy, you will get first swing at them, and you will do damage if you roll kind of better than average. You'll do some damage. However, if you don't kill them, they're gonna hit you back, and you can't do anything about that. You're also going to be out there stranded in the middle, and your entire warband of your opponent can then come in and hit you multiple times. So that it's not just a case of run to the middle and bash it out. Pardon that. There's more tactics in. Do I hold back? Do I wait until my opponent has gone, and then do I dive in because I know they can't hit me back? That some of the scenarios are about grabbing the treasure and getting away from it, so it's not even always about fighting. There's only 4 things really that you can do. You can move, you can attack, you can wait, which kind of gives you the chance to wait with your first action, and then you can activate again later on and do your second action. And you can disengage. So if you're locked in combat, you can do a 3-inch move away. So it's really simple, kind of basic, streamlined mechanics. But it's what you do with that information, what choices you make, that really kind of sort of got me. So if you've seen any of my other videos, I did a video a little while ago about why do I find it so hard to learn to play games from the rule book. This isn't one of them. This is why when I read the rules, it instantly for me clicked, and I thought, this is going to be a game I can enjoy. This is going to be a game I can play today. I can not play again for 2 weeks. I can go back to it, and I'll still remember the rules. It won't be, or I can very quickly refresh myself with the rules from like a quick play guide. It won't be I have to relearn everything. So that's kind of where I'm at with the rules and stuff. Let's have a quick look in the chat and see what people are up to. Marcus is saying Malifaux's always suffered by activation swing with different model count. Malifaux was something that this reminded me more of actually than something like Kill Team, if I'm honest. Gangs with larger model count can end up with multiple activations in a row after the opponent has done everyone. They can, but then I guess as I said before, if you've got lots of models, are you just sacrificing your models? Again, in Malifaux is very much kind of story driven, and it's about doing certain scenario things. It's not necessarily about killing. In this game, there are some instances where actually if you take more models, you're at a disadvantage because your opponent will get more points for killing models, for example. So then they're not all sort of get to the middle and hold the objective kind of thing, if you like. Who else we got? We've got Florian in as well. Good evening, Florian. He says the creatures are kind of mercs already. I assume people are talking about having like mercenary stuff. Let's have a look. Jamie saying Kill Team is 40k light. It's the same rules more or less. These rules for Warcry are completely different. It was one of the things that really interested me, Jamie, mate, was that I didn't want it to be AOS light. There's already kind of an AOS skirmish game that does or doesn't get played. There's the AOS, is it detachments that we were talking about on Saturday, which is like about 1,000 points and stuff. There are versions of AOS that are a bit lighter. But this is just a completely different game that happens to be set in the AOS world, if you like. Douglas there is saying a GW local game store told me today they aren't carrying Warcry unless pre-ordered because they had too much Kill Team stuff that didn't move for them. That's quite interesting, mate, because pretty much everywhere, certainly from a UK perspective, seemed to sell out of Kill Team stuff, and you couldn't get that starter box for love nor money. So it's interesting that that's how they feel. And actually, as a GW store, I'm surprised they're not almost kind of told they have to carry it, really. Yeah, VG is saying the same thing there, I just saw. Yeah, so that's kind of, from a mechanics point of view, I think it's really streamlined, but I think there's a lot of depth, there's a lot of tactics to it, there's a lot of variety in the different options of sort of scenarios and things. And then we don't know what's coming. We don't know how the warbands will interact with each other. We don't know, and I didn't mention actually about when you roll your hero dice. I'm sure if you're interested in the game, you'll probably know about this. But you roll your 6 hero dice, you separate the doubles, anything that you get as a double, anything you get as a triple, anything you get as a quad, you separate them. Those allow you to have kind of power-ups, if you like, or abilities during the game. You count how many singles you've got left, and whoever's got the more singles gets to activate first. They get initiative. So there's a nice little balance and mechanic of, I didn't win initiative, however, the trade-off is I get to do more stuff, if you like. And then when you put the wild dice in, that gives you the opportunity to add an extra single dice to maybe try and steal initiative, or it allows you to add to a double to make a triple, for example. So that's kind of, yeah, let me have a quick look. That's kind of game design stuff. If anybody's got any questions, please add BlackJack Legacy in the chat as well, and I'll try and answer specific questions. If you've got anything that you want to ask of me, of something like, if you've got a question about the game that you want answered, and I'll try and answer them. The next bit was they went on to campaign designs. Now, me personally, I'm not a big campaign player because I tend to play lots of different games. I might not play one thing kind of all of the time, if you like. Although I must admit, Warcry is getting me that way because it is so straightforward. So I haven't really gone in depth in the campaign rules, if I'm honest. However, I like what they've done about there's almost a storyline for each of the warbands in there, each of the factions. I like that idea. I like the way they've done the kind of, the campaign isn't a never-ending campaign. There is almost a story to the campaign, so there's an end to it. And I think at some point we'll get new campaigns, either as purchased stuff, maybe in another book down the line, or we'll maybe get them in White Dwarf or something. But I kind of like that idea because then it really is optional. If you want to play this really narrative, you buy the next sort of narrative storyline campaign book. If you want to play this match player, that's probably not relevant to you. If you want to play this open player, maybe you want to pick it up, maybe you don't. If you want some new kind of sort of win conditions and victory conditions and scenarios and things, maybe they'll come in the scenery boxes. They'll certainly give you new deployments or new kind of layouts and things. So it feels like there's a lot of options to switch and change your campaign. I think the biggest complaint, and I do agree with Owen and Ash on this one, is because what you get in that starter warband box, or what you get if you buy I forget which is the first one that's coming out now, I forget which one it is. The Cypher Lords, that was the one I forgot. The Cypher Lords are the first warband that's coming out outside of the starter box. If you buy that, that's kind of what you've got. Unless you buy 2 of them, that's your 1,000 points. That's what you're playing with. So I get for campaign stuff that maybe you want to try and kind of craft your warband around a story you've got. Maybe these models don't allow you to do that. I know you can roll up names for them on a table, like a name generator. And the guys at Guerrilla Miniature Games says they just didn't feel engaged in the models. But you don't have to use that table. You can name them models whatever you want to name them models. And maybe, a bit like Necromunda, maybe you do get invested in them that way. It's not really the way I play games. Maybe I will in the future. I've never played Frostgrave. I'm not really into that kind of game, but I like to play multiple one-off games rather than a story-driven campaign. So what I would say is this game feels like it has enough of both to appeal to both markets, and there's opportunities in the future to be able to add to that kind of campaign, that story-driven thing. Jamie's saying there, yeah, each warband gets its own special mission in the campaign. Yeah, I quite like that. I didn't read into it too deep because, as I say, it's not really my thing, but I did like the fact that they've gone that extra mile rather than just this generic campaign type thing. That was quite nice. Jamie there saying as well, honestly, Guerrilla Miniatures wanted it to be Mordheim. It's not Mordheim, so they're sour on it. It's their opinion, to be fair, mate. We're all into. I'm just some dude sitting in his spare room, kind of spouting off about my opinions as well, and they're entitled to theirs completely as well. And they do kind of clarify it's their opinion. I think they did want Mordheim, or certainly Owen wanted Mordheim, and that's not what this game is. So you have to almost separate it from what you wanted and judge it on the merits of what it is. And for me, I'm absolutely hooked on it. I'm hyped about it. So I'm kind of giving that bit away now. So I forgot to mention that. So yeah, gameplay and stuff. I didn't rate that. Did I? Gameplay stuff. For me, actually, I think I'd probably go like 4.5 again. It's everything that I wanted it to be. Really, it's not AOS light. It's not Kill Team with its save rules and its injury rules and the one wound models and the shooting from the other side of the board where cover is absolutely critical. And it's a game with very streamlined rules, but with lots of tactics actually in the game itself. Time will tell how it pans out with what the release model is for the war bands. But as it is at the minute, with what I know about it, I'm really happy with what they've done. And for me personally, it's a bold statement, but I think it could be Games Workshop's best rule set. For me personally, I never really kind of got into 40k. I've struggled with it with just the amount of stuff there is to get into it. I played AOS for quite some time, and then it seemed to kind of grow arms and legs and become quite convoluted, and it wasn't really for me at that point. I enjoyed Kill Team, but then I didn't like the way the expansions come and kind of confuse things a little bit. Quite like Shadespire, but or Underworlds as it is. But again, I don't like that kind of chasing the card mechanic now of like I must buy that warband to get the cards that I want out of it. I don't like that kind of sales mechanic. Blood Bowl's never really been my bag. And Necromunda, I said I would mention Necromunda. Necromunda is really, really granular. If you're into that really gritty, I want to choose the type of gun my guy has. I want to choose the type of bullets my guy has. I want to be able to kind of run around and stab somebody in the back. Then that Necromunda is fantastic. It's brilliant. But that's not what this is. However, I would say I think they're closer than I think most people will give them credit for. The release model of you buy a box of Goliaths or Escher Gang or whatever, and then that's your kind of your gang. And then you can buy another box and convert some of those and put different weapons on them as you kind of level up through campaigns. Or you buy something bots, Ambots, I think it is. You can buy an Ambot or something like that, or the beasts are starting to come in and stuff. I think it's closer from the release model, if you like, to Necromunda, but it's still its own kind of game thing. Marcus is saying, what are the different win conditions? Is it just objective, or are there bottle checks? Bottle check. I don't know what bottle checks are, mate. Is it battle checks? I'm not sure, mate. The win condition we played was there was one. I should clarify as well. There are some cards that have like a kind of a symmetrical symbol on them, and they are designed for the matched play games. So the terrain is set up to be quite symmetrical. The win conditions are quite balanced. The deployments are balanced. The one we played, I think, wasn't one of those. And one of us was the attacker, one was the defender. And basically the defender had to try and protect the treasure, if you like. And I was the attacker. I had to try and stop them doing it. And basically I managed to run over and grab the treasure and run off, sort of, and hide in the corner with it over the 3 turns. So yeah, I think that might explain one of the things anyway. Let's have a look. We've got Devon Smithwick as well. Nice to see you, buddy. Douglas is saying, can someone explain this mythical Mordheim desire? Mordheim passed me by, buddy. I'm not the person to kind of talk about that, and I'm certainly not a narrative gamer. So I'll let other people explain that one to you. But I think people just generally have really good fond memories about it. It was set in the old world of fantasy, and it's generally kind of held as one of GW's best rule sets. Me personally, never played it, so I can't really comment on that one. Luke is saying, I thought it was more RPG-esque than it is, which Mordheim definitely was. I think it is RPG-esque, but it's RPG light. So you're not you're not playing with the individual characters, if you like. You're not giving them new weapons and stuff. You can give them some bonuses and things like rerolls and stuff like that. But you're almost just taking a warband of characters. You're playing through a story and kind of seeing that story out, if you like. It's not about playing that story forever. If you want to play a different story, switch your warband and play your mates over a campaign. Go and buy another warband for, I don't think 30 quid's too bad for a new warband to then paint up and play through another campaign and play that storyline. So it's almost an introduction into those kind of heavier campaign systems, but without the paperwork, without the kind of the stat tracking, and without all of the modification. It's if you like that kind of game, but you're a bit short on time, this might fill that gap, if you like. Michael is saying, do we know how GW will rebalance the game moving forwards in the event of them inadvertently releasing an overpowered faction? What I would say, mate, is at first when I realised that the cards and stuff weren't in the book, I was a little bit disappointed. It would have been nice to see them. However, since they do have cards, the cards will come in the boxes with the warbands as they release. That means if they do want to do a rebalance, they've just got to do a card update, do like a season 2 box of new cards or something like that. I'd quite happily pay a $5, like kind of once a year or once every 18 months for a kind of a rebalancing card for my faction or something like that. So at least it's easier to do and it doesn't invalidate the core rulebook. So I actually quite like that they've done that. Florian says, hey, so harsh in GMG. They wanted a deeper game. What's wrong with that? There are no modifiers in the game rewarding tactics, no outnumbering, no flank attacks, no night advantage. No, I'm certainly not bashing them in the slightest. I said that at the start, that basically, they're entitled to their opinion. They wanted a different kind of game. They just wanted a crunchier rule set. They wanted a heavier rule set. Me personally, I wanted something like that, and that's why I completely changed my opinion about holding off and not getting it into definitely buying it. And I've pre-ordered it, and I've pre-ordered pretty much everything except that rubber ruler, really. So yeah, no, I don't know what the chat's been. Maybe I've missed something, but certainly from my point of view, I'm not bashing them. I'm just giving a kind of an alternative opinion to the structure of how they did things. That's all. Jamie saying Andy ran off like a little baby. And bottle checks a morale mechanic. No, I didn't realise that one. Dice Tales is saying, big question, 2 starter sets or 1? Just 1, man. I don't think you need 2. If you bought 2 because you wanted the terrain to play AOS or to play Vanguard or to play something else, I think you'd quite easily be able to sell on the warbands, because people will want to buy more than one warband. So I think if you sort of, for example, if you pay £80 for the starter box with a 20% discount and you sell the warbands on for say 20 quid each, that means you can sell your rulebook on for another 15 quid. You've got all that terrain for like kind of like 25 quid or something like that. That's not a bad deal, really. So I can see the plus points in buying 2. However, personally, I don't need to buy 2, so that's it. Peter says £5 for a card upgrade. Doubtful. Well, what I would say is that the cards for the non-Chaos warbands are a £5, which is why I said a £5 really. They've packaged those cards for each warband of the non-Chaos factions for £5. So that's why I assume that they could do that, mate. It would be per warband, obviously. Douglas is saying Andy can take Owen, but Ash might win the final round. It's not a fight I really want to have, mate. Glenn says, are you worried about getting swept away on the hype train and the wave of the next big thing? I'm actually not, mate. One of the reasons I wanted to hold off on this was because I didn't want to get caught up in the hype train. And I purposefully, if you watch back last week's live stream, I was definitely not buying this game. I was going to hold off and see how it went and maybe see how see what the first releases and stuff like. It's after I read the rules and after I've played a game. It's not the hype that's kind of catching me up, if I'm honest. So this is probably the one, the only other one that I held off because of the hype and didn't get into was Blackstone Fortress, and I've still never bought that. I watched the gameplay videos of it with Becca Scott and Duncan and Peachy and that, and the game just didn't really grab me. I knew it wasn't something I would get to the table very often. So I've purposefully kind of held off on a lot of the hype stuff when it comes to Games Workshop, because I'm not a GW fanboy. I never really have been. I mean, I don't think anybody could really accuse me of that. And I do know it's very easy to get caught up in the hype with those kind of games because there are so many people talking about it. This one for me, I'm hyped for it because of what I've read and because of what I've played, not because I've been kind of caught up on the hype train. It just so happens it's a really, really straightforward game to get into. The models are beautiful, obviously. I think it's good value, and even if I didn't buy anything more than what I've already bought, I feel like I've got a good game for my money. So I hope it goes on to bigger and better things as well, and it grows, and I stick with it. But certainly, I'm happy with what I'm buying. Johnny Jumbo says the only thing I've pre-ordered are the 6 rubber rulers. Yeah, I haven't ordered a rubber ruler, and I haven't ordered a case for it either. But I have ordered the core box. I've ordered one of each of the non-chaos cards. I've ordered, what else was there? I've ordered the Mausoleum terrain set. Was there anything else? I think that's it. I haven't ordered the book yet. Although to be fair, this has made me download an AOS audio book from Audible. Link in the description if you want to get one for yourself for free. And I started listening to some of the kind of the AOS like lore, if you like. Paul Welsh says, I'm trying to decide to get into Vanguard or Warcry. So, what's the difference? Because there's somebody else has asked me this as well, because I made no kind of sort of secrets that I like Vanguard as well. The biggest thing for me is that I would say that you can buy a warband for Warcry and you buy it and that's it, you're in. With Vanguard, I like the way they did it initially, where it was you kind of buy your core of your warband for £25, and then you can buy your kind of like your add-ons for another £25, kind of like your specialist if you like. I like that. They did that for the first 4 warbands of the Basileans, of the Night Stalkers, of the Abyssals, and the Northern Alliance. They did it for that. Then they released the Dwarfs, and it was scattered around over lots of different boxes. And you kind of had to, at the time, Easy Army didn't have the rules on, so you had to just kind of buy it all. And the price had jumped up by that point because there was lots of individual models. Then there was a very different model release again for the Goblins, where again it was scattered all over. And instead of costing like £50 to buy everything for your warband, it was like £100. And then they're doing something different again for the Trident Realms, where you can just buy the cards, and then you have to kind of go in and buy the individual models from the Kings of War set things. The game is good. Don't get me wrong, the Vanguard as a game is good. I like the Vanguard mechanics. I'm not as keen on the way the warbands have been released. I wish they'd just stuck to one way of releasing them. So if you want to play Dwarves, for example, it might cost you £100. Where if I want to play a new faction in Warcry, it's going to cost me £30. I might not get as many models, but then I don't need as many models. So that for me, that's the one thing they've done that I'm not as happy with, if I'm honest. Different Gear TV, good evening, Busey. How are you doing? It says, how many miniatures do you get with this? If I remember off the top of my head, I think is there 8 in one warband and 9 in the other, and then you get all of the beasts as well, of which I think there is 12 beasts. So there's quite a bit in that. So a warband, according to the rules, a warband is between 3 and 15 models, but all of the box sets look like they have around 9 in them. So that gives you some idea, really, of what you're getting for your money. Malkavian saying the latest Mantic Minis are great too. The old stuff, not so much. I'd agree with that, mate. Some of the new resin stuff, absolutely fantastic. Really, really pleased with it. The Northern Alliance stuff, I was really, really happy with. Some of the older Basilean stuff, not quite so much. But I guess that's like anything. Joel Wrigley's in as well. Good evening, Joel Wrigley. This is any game demoed by Becker Stock grabs me. I've seen some mixed comments on that one as well. where have I just seen somebody? Oh, Michael's in as well. Good evening, Michael. How are you doing as well? Richard said, always Mantic hands down, although very valid points about the Warband releases. To be honest, I've always liked Mantic games as well. The Mantic games is because I like that easier, more simple rule set, easier to get into. I can play the game and think about the tactics and not think about remembering the rules. Warcry is the first game for me that Games Workshop has managed to kind of to steal that exact same feeling in me, that I feel like I can get into the game and not fight with the rules, if you like. Tiberius is in as well. Good evening, buddy. He said, I'll be honest, I'm fairly happy that Warcry box game isn't compiled in a way that if you buy the book and everything you need, instead you're not feeling ripped off. Yeah, there's no exclusives, mate, in the box. Everything's available separately, or it will be once the warbands are released as well. And I get why they've not released them on launch, because there's more reason to go and buy the box, if you like. But yeah, there is that. One thing I wanted to touch on as well, and I don't think I've touched on it yet. Somebody said that the non-chaos warbands felt a little bit kind of almost skewed a little bit like they were an afterthought. And at first, I didn't think that was the case. I thought, well, why would you not add them in? But the more I think about it, is the more I potentially think actually they probably were. I think maybe the backlash about it being chaos only maybe might have forced their hand a little bit. And this is an opinion. Don't know if it's fact or not. Because I can honestly see that we're only going to get chaos. Like the universe, the story behind it is about these chaos bands kind of fighting. I can only think that we're not really ever going to see any non-chaos faction box sets. Like, we're not going to see like a Stormcast box set for Warcry. If you want to use models you've got, by all means use them. However, to buy a non-chaos warband, going out and buy the miniatures, is a much more expensive way of getting into Warcry. So I almost feel like it's a bridging mechanic for people that already have AOS models. But the idea of this is to get you buying the new warbands, the new models, and get involved in that story, I think. Reluctant Archie says, can you imagine 3 models, 330 points each? Wow, brutal. Yeah, it'll be interesting actually to kind of see exactly what that warband looks like. And I can only imagine it'll be kind of something, maybe there'll be one model that's 500 points, and then the other ones are like 250s or something like that. Who knows? But it'll be interesting to see what they do. Maybe that's where these gargantuan things, or whatever they call it, come in. Tim says, the flying beast things, are they for a faction or environmental or against both sides? They, if I remember rightly, mate, you can recruit them into your warband as part of the campaign stuff. They're almost kind of, think of them a bit like walkers in The Walking Dead. I think they're almost like interactive terrain and stuff. You can try and tame them. You can try and make them attack your enemy, but if you roll badly, they'll attack you. There's some nice little mechanics mixed in there. Tiberius is saying, I'll hold fire on Warcry because I'm going to tip into Walking Dead. Cool, mate. Whatever floats your boat. Where are we at? Michael says, the only thing bothering me about the extra terrain sets, the Mausoleum's already 3rd release. There's so many beautiful terrain pieces from G-Dubs. Yeah, I mean, they did the same for Kill Team. However, I think it's actually not a bad deal. So again, £55 for a box in the UK. There'll be 20%, 25% discounts online. You're getting a full new board, all your battle plan things for it, your terrain cards, and all of that terrain. So then you could just, for wherever it is, 40 odd quid, you've got a whole new board to play on again. You couldn't buy a board for, say, I couldn't go and buy a mat and terrain for Vanguard, for example, for 40 odd quid. That's for sure. Where else we at? Paul is saying, I don't want easy to paint. I honestly say that, I mean, as good as Mantic are catching up, and Mantic are doing much better with their models now, and everybody will say that as well. Games Workshop are still the standard when it comes to plastic miniatures. They are still the standard. That's all I can say, really. Kieran said, I still have Vanguard. Despite the different factions released and how it's done, all releases have a warband starter set. £30 and you have a warband. Costs up to £100 if you want it all. it's fair enough, mate, but it's up to £100. That's the bit that I just wish they'd all been the same price. So why would I go and buy goblins, for example, for £100 when I can buy Night Stalkers for £50? It's for a game that is a low model count. I wish the warbands, and I know why that's the case, because there's a mixture of resins and plastics and hard plastics, and it's some of it's existing stuff. I just wish there'd been a business model to keep it simple. That's all. We've got a donation there as well from VJ. Thank you very much, buddy. It says non-chaos factions were definitely an afterthought. If you listen to the development of the game on Stormcast, that's pretty clear. I said, mate, I haven't listened to that, but I will do, actually. I definitely feel like they're tacked on. I've heard rumours that the cards won't be around for very long. I don't think they might not come back as a reprint. And I honestly think we will only see the kind of the chaos. Well, I don't think they'll be going back and retrospectively kind of looking to build on the game. I think it'll always be new factions, I think. A bit like Necromunda. That was what I was trying to get at with the Necromunda reference before, I think. Chris calls us in as well. Good evening, Chris. How are you doing? He says Deepkin could just have 4 eels. I've not seen the point cost for the Deepkin stuff yet, mate. But yeah, that'll be quite interesting to see how they play out. Where we're up to, we've got Jesse Hamill as well. Good evening, Jesse. How are you doing? She says, did I miss something? Why is the £100 box $170? Because that's GW, mate. What can I say? That when it comes to exchange rates, it all goes out the window. I have got no idea why that's the case. If you're not happy with $170, have a chat with the Australian guys. They get screwed over even worse. It doesn't make it right, however. Paul said, I'd like to see what the community's like around Manchester for Warcry. There's a good scene for Vanguard. Yeah, and what I will say is, like every game, a game is only as good as how many times you get to play it. You can have the best game in the world, but if it never sees the table, then it's not, like, you're kind of wasting your money, aren't you, really? So there is a real balance to that kind of stuff. If you've got a good scene for a game that you enjoy, there's no reason to jump and pick up something new. I'm not trying to sell this game, if you like. I've never tried to sell a game to anybody. I don't make any money by selling games. I just like to give my opinion of what I'm enjoying, what I'm interested in. That's what this channel's about. And at the minute, Warcry has really hooked me because it wasn't a game I was expecting to like, and I really do. So you will definitely see Warcry content on the channel. If it's not for you, it's not for you. You don't have to watch it, but you will see Warcry content on the channel. Where else we're at? We've got Paul is in as well. Paul, man. Good evening, buddy. So I think there's definitely scope for some non-chaos factions, especially the Dwarven Fire Slayers might go specifically looking for good fight, and Caradon Overlords looking for treasure. I think the problem is when you start to bring some of those ones in. There's no reason why they couldn't down the line. However, I think they're trying to take this in a different direction. And I don't think it's ever really meant to be AOS. It's just set in the AOS world. It's meant to be its own thing. Just in the same way that there's not really that crossover between Necromunda and 40k, but nobody seems to nobody screams out for why can't I have Space Marines in Necromunda? It's like there's a story, there's a lore to Necromunda, why there isn't a load of Primaris Marines fighting in the Underhive. And I think this is going to be the same purely from a narrative point of view. It doesn't really make sense, I think, in my opinion. We got Tony in as well, Mr. Spooky Thing. Good evening, buddy. Says, sorry I'm late, got caught up playing a new game. I'm going to say it's Aptim. I'm sorry if I can't pronounce that name. Nice to have you in the chat. He says, what do you think about new Underworld season? What do you expect? Underworld got out of hand in season 2 for me. That card chase mechanic thing just really turned me off, and it became really, really meta, if you like, at the top end. If you're playing just kind of locally, casually with your mates, doesn't really matter what the game does, really, as long as you just buy the warbands you like the look of. But on a more competitive level, which is where the game was aimed, for me, it's kind of lost its sparkle a little bit. I hope this introduces something that brings everything back in line, but I do worry that they're now fighting against what's gone before it, if you like. Season 1 was relatively balanced, although there was some quirks in there, and they started to ban some cards. Season 2 felt like it just kind of threw it all out, and I'm not sure how they'll recover that for Season 3. I hope they do. It's a great game. I really, really enjoyed playing it when I first got into it. It just became an arms race, and I felt I had to. If I missed one of the war bands, I didn't get to kind of do the cards. And I'm not really like a card building. I really like Keyforge, for example, because you don't have to build decks. I'm not really a deck building fan, if I'm honest. And I see Shadespire or Underworlds as a card game with miniatures as opposed to a miniatures game. I think that's kind of how I see it, really. Jamie saying, I don't make any money selling games, click my affiliate link. Yes, if you do click my affiliate link, I do get a little kickback as well. You pay the same price, but I get a bit of commission for sending you there. But I would never say go and buy a game if I didn't believe in it myself, if it wasn't something I haven't spent my own money on. People do send me stuff, and I will review it on the channel, and I will always give an honest opinion. But I'm not trying to sell anybody on Warcry. GW spend thousands on marketing. They don't need me to try and convince you at the 11th hour. I'm just giving my opinion on it. And I love you, really. Kevin is saying, I do like the board idea. Wish they were a little more generic to use across other things. But the board and terrain in the sets is very cool. One thing I would say, Kieran, if you buy the Mausoleum set, for example, and you have the core set, the boards are double-sided. One side of the core set and one side of the Mausoleum board fit together to make whatever size it turns out to be, 30 by 48, is it? 32 by 48, something like that. So you almost get kind of a big enough board to pay like a Vanguard game or something like that on, I guess. So you could use a mixture of terrain and stuff like that to do it on bigger games as well. Tony's saying he's going to wait and see how things go locally before thinking of Warcry. Yeah, again, it's only as good as the community that's around it. Ruby says potential for expansions is huge from a more diverse bestiary, more RPG element. It wouldn't surprise me if they kind of see what kind of community springs up around it. If it becomes a really kind of tournament game, maybe that's where future releases will go. If it becomes a very much story-driven narrative game, maybe that's where future releases will go. What I love about this over Kill Team is Kill Team was released as kind of competitive's not the right word. It was meant to be like, yeah, it was meant to be a kind of like a balanced fight, if you like. Competitive isn't the word I'm thinking of, but that's kind of what comes to mind. Then there was this kind of tacked on, little bit kind of story-driven kind of campaign type thing that didn't really work. And then later on came Arena, Kill Team Arena, which was then, this is the competitive thing. But what Arena did for me was they did make it very balanced, and it had the what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of like the balanced deployments, if you like, for scenery and stuff. Symmetrical, that's the word I'm looking for. It lost a lot of the visual things that I loved about Kill Team. Those big buildings disappeared, and you got like walls on a board that weren't real 3D walls, if you like. What I feel with Warcry, and that I got instantly from reading the rules, was that they've thought about it in advance. There's the match player, there's the open player, there is the narrative player. They've built into the core set the 3 ways to play. It's not like they did almost like with Necromunda, for example, where it was almost a board game and then you had to buy Gang Wars to go into kind of 3D terrain. It wasn't like Kill Team, where if you wanted something a bit more narrative, maybe you went off and picked up Rogue Trader. This feels like they've learned from all of those things. Now, 6 months again, 6 months down the line, ask me again. I could be completely wrong, but I just feel like this has got a bit more forethought than kind of their previous games, if you like. Thank you very much there, Busey, and another donation as well. Very, very kind of you, mate. Not needed, but I do appreciate that. Thank you very much. He says, another great show. You're welcome, buddy. Thanks for tuning in. Nick saying, I know the top table guys wants to build a good Stockport scene for Warcry. Yeah, if anybody's in and around Element Games, they're certainly trying to build something locally for that one. We just had another donation as well there. Thank you very much, Douglas. Much appreciated. Again, not needed, but it really is appreciated. Thank you. Paul is saying I would be okay with some non-human or non-chaos warbands. I think it would be nice to see things like kind of Skaven and stuff in there. I think maybe that's where you start to get the 15 model count, and maybe they kind of they don't have many wounds, but there's a lot of them. Or maybe their weapons don't do much damage, so it takes 2 or 3 of them to take somebody down. I'd like to see that kind of swarm thing come in at some point, but who knows, eh? Who knows? Where we Dice Tales are saying I love some crazy non-competitive events. Can only think of maybe Lord of the Rings card game events, but they are co-ops. I think it would be quite nice to try and build like almost like a story campaign day for this kind of game. You know, where you've only got to have like 1 box of models and you're in kind of thing. That would be cool to see. Hodginder says I was going to get into Shadespire, but the card collecting side put me off. But Lord of the Rings starter set instead should be here this week. Well, I don't know much about Lord of the Rings, mate, but Lord of the Rings starters. Do you mean the miniatures game? That'll be. I've got that over there as well. I'm kind of still halfway through painting my half of it. But yeah, I played Star Wars Destiny card game for quite some time, and honestly, the card chase of always trying to keep all the latest stuff is way more expensive than I ever imagined it could be. Dice Tale said you get promos for turning up and winning or losing. Didn't matter. It'll be interesting that actually, because it'd be nice to see what they do from like organized play for something like this. Thanks again, Douglas. Much appreciated. Just getting down to that one again. Everyone got mugs. Yes, mugs are. I've still got a couple left here actually, but so far I've given out a couple of mugs. So I'm due to hit 5,000 subscribers in the next couple of weeks or something like that, I suppose. I will. The Monday live stream after I hit 5,000 subscribers, we'll have another mug giveaway. I promise. And VG is saying yes, more Skaven. Where Gavin Moorcroft as well is saying that there are non-chaos warbands already teased on the Warcry website. Are these the ones that actually I have got the website? Let me bring that Warcry website up, buddy. So these are the 6 that have been announced. They have said that there's going to be 9 Chaos Warbands, so there's another 3 that we haven't seen yet. There's 2 of them are mentioned in the rulebook, and I forget their names now. However, there's another one that we don't know anything about yet. So these are the non-Chaos ones, but these are the ones that we were seeing. I think they're almost a little bit tacked on, a bit of an afterthought. So we've got Stormcast, we've got Daughters of Cain. Sorry, I'm trying to read this at a funny angle. We've got what the hell is that? I can't see from here. I think that's Idneth Deepkin. I can see it on my main screen now. We have then got Nighthaunt. We've got Nagash. We've then got, what the hell does that say? Flesh Eater Courts, that's where it says. My screen's too small away from me. And then for Destruction, we've got the Gloomspike Gates, we've got the Iron Jaws, and we've also got Bone Splitters as well. And actually, haven't they just been pulled together in a new AOS faction book at the weekend as well? So it's another reason why it feels like it doesn't kind of, not quite right. But yeah, if you go to the Warcry website, if you click on these, this will tell you the models that are in. It doesn't tell you the points cost. Obviously, you have to buy those £5 card packs for that. I've pre-ordered them all, and I'll be doing some videos on them when they come. I'll be doing some stuff on kind of what's the cheapest non-chaos warband to get into. So if you just want to dip your toe in, you go and buy a box of Gloomspite, or go and buy a box of Bone Splitters, for example. I'll be doing some videos on that as well. I'll certainly be doing some painting stuff. So let's go back. I'll be doing some painting stuff as well. I'll probably do some painting videos with the terrain, and there'll definitely be some gameplay videos. I normally do something like a kind of 5 rules beginners get wrong. I'll be doing something like that as well. So yeah, I've got lots of plans for it. I've been working through some of that stuff with the rule books, but I like to fill them with the actual equipment, so I'm holding off on them until this stuff comes. But yeah, if anybody's kind of tuning in for the first time here, or maybe you've just come here for the Warcry stuff, please do consider subscribing, as there'll definitely be some Warcry content coming as soon as that box arrives. Kieran is saying Skaven are going to come there, chaos after all. I'd quite like to see Skaven. It wouldn't surprise me if Skaven are the one we've not seen yet. And Kieran is saying the new Beastmen for Underworld will be designed to fit across both games. That'll be interesting to see if they try and tie those kind of things together, to be honest. Richard says you can tell what Andy plays. He knows the orcs by heart. I didn't want to get the names wrong because I'm kind of leaning across trying to read them sideways, but I've been painting up. I don't know if you'll be able to see them behind me there. I dove in on Friday and decided to buy myself a box of the brutes, the Orc brutes, just for something to do, a bit of a hobby thing for Friday night. And I built these and painted these up on Friday night. There's a picture in my Facebook group as well if anybody wants to go over and check that out. So yeah, I just thought I'd kind of do them. So yeah, so I was looking at the green skins, really. That was why I remembered those ones. Paul says, was worried my imminent buying of Vanguard was a mistake when reading the video title. Was sure it's still the right decision now. Thanks for the chat. That's all, like I say, I'm not trying to sell this to anybody. I'm trying to give a different opinion from somebody else that wasn't interested in this originally, but now I am. And the reasons I'm interested in this is all of the reasons I've kind of gone through. The fact that it's low entry cost, really, from a point of view. I think the starter box is good value. If you want to buy a warband, £30 gets you in. I think that's good value. I like the fact that the rules are really simple, but there's deep tactics in there. I like the fact that it can do all of the different kind of the deployment and the different scenario things. And I like the fact that it's not Age of Sigmar Light. I like the fact that it's its own kind of contained standalone game. Hojinder says, yeah, Lord of the Rings, SBG, Pelennor Field Starter, tired of card games with extreme power creep. Yeah, which side are you going to go for, mate? I split a box with my mate Jason, and he took the good side, and I took the evil side. I've been painting those up in the background. Paul says, you sold me. Well, like I say, if all I'm trying to do is give information that might help you make a decision. I've been lucky enough to play a demo. Not everybody has, because they haven't been to their local store or whatever. And I've had a good read through the rule book as well. And it's somebody that I would honestly say struggles to learn to play games by the rule book, because sometimes I find them too convoluted. And I'm a much more visual player. I get a lot more from moving models around and learning that way. If I can pick it up by the rule book, anybody can pick it up by the rule book. And then after actually pushing some models around with Jamie on Saturday, it was what I wanted it to be. It's exactly what I wanted it to be. VJ says, do you do those orcs with contrast? I did use contrast paints for the first time, mate, and I used it on the skin, and I used it on, I got the grey one, I forget what the colours are now, the paint's downstairs. I used the orc skin for the skin, I used the grey colour for kind of the armour on the shoulders, and I used the black one for the trousers. Everything else I painted by hand there, just normal paints. But I was quite impressed with the contrast paints, actually. Again, this is another thing where I've kind of changed my mind on them. When I demoed the contrast paints at UK Games Expo, they gave you like a big wash brush, and they gave you a Space Marine. I think neither of those things are what you should be trying. These models have loads and loads of kind of high detail on, and I used I think it was like a size 2 Winsor & Newton, and just kind of took my time and put the contrast paint where I wanted it, and I was much happier with the results. And I'll probably go and buy more of the contrast paints. I think using them in the right places, they have a really, really good effect, and mixing them with standard painting methods, I think, gives a good effect. Where are we at? Michael saying, shameless plug, subscribe to me now and become number 1300 and win one of Andy's mugs. Yeah, that's not the case, mate. Horrid Person, good evening, Gene, says, Necromunda remains a great pick. Necromunda's a great game. It's just not a game for me, buddy. I've tried playing it. It's too crunchy. There's too many rules to remember. I don't play it often enough to get the most out of it, where you're kind of playing through a long campaign. There's no such thing really as a bad game. There's just games that don't fit with you or don't fit with me. Necromunda's not one that fits with me. I love the aesthetic of it. I just think the rules are more complicated than I personally want. That's why Warcry for me is a big hit. Richardson, use the contrast medium, changes the game with contrast paints. The darker colours come out much nicer. Yeah, I've not tried the contrast medium. Somebody else told me that after I'd used it as well. Maybe I'll pick some of that up and give it a try. Kieran says, I feel Warcry is more of a self-contained, quick tactical game. Pick up and play in a few minutes. Quite different from the lineage of GW skirmish games that have more wargame depth. Completely agree, mate. It's one of the reasons why I like it. It feels like the kind of game that I could turn up to a tournament and quite happily play with my little warband. Or it's the kind of game that I could quite happily play on a Friday night with a beer and a pizza and get 2 or 3 games out in an evening and just have a bit of a laugh, or maybe play through a campaign over a couple of like gaming nights, something like that. It just kind of fits with what I'm looking for, really. Douglas is saying he's bought a pot as well. Can't wait to use the medium. Paul's having a chat there with Richard. Marcus says, are the Warcry warbands chaos undivided? Does the narrative suggest we will be specific gods followed? I'll be honest, mate, I'm not really sure. I mean, some of them look very obviously kind of Khorne, if you like. So, for example, not the Untamed Beasts, the Iron Golems look very kind of Khorne. But it's things like that Corvus Cabal, the Birdmen type thing. The Cypher Lords do look very Tzeentch, that kind of thing. But I'm not sure, mate. I'm not sure if they're specifically like linked to it. Where are we at? Douglas says, don't mention Highlander, Andy will cry. Who mentioned it? No such thing as a bad game, Highlander. Sorry, mate. There is... No, I stand by what I said. No, I don't stand by what I said. There are such things as bad games. When it comes to miniatures games, if there's a community for it, it can't be that bad. It just doesn't. It's not necessarily backtrack. It's not necessarily the game for everyone. So as I said before, Necromunda, great game. Everyone loves it. It's not for me. I think maybe that is a good comparison. If you are a gamer like me, who maybe doesn't have time to commit to just one game, you like to play lots of different things, or you don't have a lot of time. If you're not really into the really kind of crunchy rules, the ones where you have to study them and try and work out the loopholes. If you're looking for a skirmish game with low model count, maybe a low kind of small board size, maybe Warcry is something worth checking out. We got Joe27 in as well. He says, do you need the new contrast spray primers for contrast paints to work? And even buddy, I didn't use the spray primer, mate. I've got an airbrush and I used Vallejo Ghost Grey Surface Primer. It's quite kind of shiny. It's got a bit of a shiny finish to it anyway. I just thought I'd try that and see how that worked out. I was really, really happy with the finish. I personally won't go and buy the GW spray now. It worked well for that. I have seen people using kind of Corax white spray. I've seen people... I think what I would say is you've got to have a light colour, be it white or light grey. I've also seen it over silver as well. And if you do, say, a silver base coat and then the red contrast, the Blood Angels red over the top, it gives that really kind of almost pearlescent candy kind of colour over the top. So you can get some nice finishes. But yeah, it's recommended to use the GW stuff. It's not a definite you have to kind of thing. I'd personally be tempted to just give it a try with what you've got first, and if you just spray it over the back of, like, I was going to say a plastic spoon, but you're not really going to get that. Get an old model and give it a test with what you've got first, because the GW sprays are not cheap, to be fair, and there are other options. Jamie says the ARS War Scroll cards give them all the Slaves to Darkness keyword. I would agree that they are chaos undivided. Thank you, buddy. And VJ says, if you listen to the Stormcast with Maxine, they go into warbands and their relationship. I'll definitely have to listen to that now. It's kind of... When I played AOS, I played because I liked the models and I liked the fact that the rules were relatively easy to get into initially, back before General's Handbook 1 or in General's Handbook 1. And it kind of grew arms and legs, but I was never really engaged in the lore. This is the first time that I've kind of wanted to find out more about it because it's something new. I think I'll pick up the new storybook, the new novel with the different books in, and I'll listen to the kind of podcast. it's just got a different feel for me personally, if I'm honest. Where we at? We got Gary Powelton as well. Good evening, buddy. He says, been using the contrast paints to bang up the Joan of Arc figures. I saw them painted. I saw those pictures, mate. They look excellent. And he's also done a Blood Bowl team with them. Jamie says, now how about starting a food truck champion community? Yeah. So for those that don't know, Jamie, or Devious2K there, runs Asgard board games, which is like the board game version, or board game sister of Asgard War Games. So if anybody's into the board games, please do check out the website. And yeah, Jimmy gave me a copy of what's it called again? Street food, something like that. Where's it called again? Where are we at? Oh, I've lost where it was, mate. That was it. Food truck champion. You gave me a copy of that the other day to try out. So yeah, I'll give a bit of feedback on that one when I've played it. Richard Dean says, nice dodge on Vanguard versus Warcry. What did I dodge, mate? What did I dodge on Vanguard? I'm happy to answer any questions on Vanguard versus Warcry. I think the different games, they give a completely different feel, if I'm honest. Vanguard's got some great mechanics in it. I love that kind of the ability to react and the ability to kind of to sort of fatigue and that kind of stuff. The different games, they appeal to different parts of me. I'm not saying one's better than the other, if I'm honest, but I'm happy to answer any questions people have got. Did I miss your question? I'm just trying to look back now, Richard, and see if I've missed one of your questions. No, I'm not sure if I have, but yeah, let me know if I did miss it. Marcus is saying there I'll go back. I missed another one there. Zingbo says the Stormcast with Maxine suggested that warbands exemplify cultures that don't know about the 4 Chaos gods. They have their own impression of what Chaos is. I like the fact that because it's a standalone game, you don't have to almost obey what's gone before. You can take it in a different direction. I like that. Marcus is saying, what community campaign formats do you think would be good for keeping a local scene interested? I'm not sure, mate. I think there'll be kind of like ladder campaigns and stuff, I think. You know, you could almost, you know, who's kind of warband can rack up the most wins, and you can almost, because it's got an RPG element to it, you can almost build in your own stories around it, really. You know, if you want to see every time you win a game, you get a reroll, or every time you lose a game, you get a reroll, so that the people that lose games become more powerful, and like kind of who can be at the top of the tree after the end of it. So you kind of flip it on its head and give the losers a bit of a power up. Where are we at? Bit of a chat going on there. Claudio saying, for me, Vanguard's got everything positive this game seems to have, but with more variation. Our games are always fun and easy. Decisions are key: fatigue, power, army composition. Yeah, I'm not a massive fan of list building, if I'm honest. It's another reason why I quite like this kind of buy a box and dive straight in. I'm not a win at all cost gamer. I just like to play for fun. And if that can be simplified by me buying a box of models that I can just then go and use with an easier rule set in a kind of a nice sort of, in a really beautiful setting with the scenery, kind of works for me. Doesn't mean I won't play Vanguard anymore. Just means I've got something that I can kind of throw down there on a Friday night for beer. Ruiz is saying he's got to go now. Have a nice week. Thank you very much, buddy. Nick saying he's used contrast over lots of different things, and most work okay. I think it's just got to be light. Don't do it over a dark colour. Adam's in as well. Evening, buddy. He says, honestly, I love the look of Warcry. It would be great to get the terrain to use in AOS. But I'm going to get back to that. Richard said, I asked what you prefer. It's hard to say at the minute, mate, to be honest, because I've played a lot of Vanguard and not a lot of Warcry. So it's something I might do a video on it. Like once I've played enough Warcry to form a full opinion, I'll give an opinion on it. But I think it's too early to say at the minute. Vanguard, I've probably got about 20 or 30 games of Vanguard under my belt now, so I've played a lot of it. Warcry just scratches a different itch for me. It's an easier game just to pull out and play, I think, for me personally. And it's a different aesthetic. It's less elves and goblins and knights and wizards and devils, and It's less fantasy, if you like. This gives me a different feel. Adam saying didn't have time to buy in, just sit on the shelf. Yeah, that's the thing as well. If it's not going to get played, don't bother buying it. Peter saying look forward to GW making more substantial fantasy terrain. I think this will the two sets that I've seen. So let me have a look and so I can go back to the website and I should be able to tell you. See if we can see the pictures of the terrain sets because there's another couple that they've shown. So here we are. We'll go here. So these are the terrain sets. So there's the Mausoleum one here. There is, if I can see what it says, the Shattered Stone. Is it Stone Vault or Storm Vault? Which is the one in the middle there as well. And then I think that's the one, isn't it? The screens are tiny. They're miles away from me. I think this is the one that you get in the starter box as well. Potentially, they might release that as an add-on at some point as well in the future. But yeah, if I click on, I mean, you can see they're really nice. You know what I mean? Terrain's not something I have a lot of. If I can dive in for less than £50 and pick up a board and terrain, that's a good deal for me personally. What can I say? Where else we at? Because we're getting towards the end of the chat now. So, Gene says playing games is all about playing with the right people. As long as you play with like-minded people, it'll be fun. To be honest, mate, I've played some awful games with great people and really enjoyed them, and I've played some great games with awful people and hated every minute of it. You're exactly right. The games are only as good as the company that you play them with, mate. 100% with that. Phil said, I'm not sure if you already said, but will you be buying the Start Collecting box for the Primaris Space Wolves, mate? No, I won't be, mate. I won't be buying that. But what's the word I'm trying to look for? Jamie, BJ saying if you do free shipping to Australia, get all my business. Yeah, that might take a little while to get there, that one, buddy. Douglas says, is it so accessible that even Lou would play? So for those that don't know, Lou's my wife. She's not into miniatures games, mate, really, to be honest. I think it really is. The mechanics are easy enough that anybody who's like a non-gamer will be able to dive in and be able to play the game for sure. But she's not really into the miniatures games and games where you've got to kind of measure movement. She's much more into kind of co-op stuff, much more abstract kind of puzzle games, that kind of stuff, card games. So I don't think she would play it, but that's not a slight on the game as such. It's more just it's not her kind of thing, I think, mate. It's certainly the kind of thing like my sons would play. So because it's just a quick, I mean, first game we played, me and Jamie, we learned the game as we played it, and it took us like 45 minutes to play the game. Steve's saying no interest in the game, but the terrain might be useful. Yeah, that's not a bad shout. And Gary says, James and Sophie run another games design course starting in September. Having just done the final part on Saturday, couldn't recommend the course high enough. Good to hear, me. I'm really glad you enjoyed it. Jamie says, you know what she would like. Is there anything to do with food trucks, mate, by any chance? And with that, on that bombshell, as they say, I think we'll call it a night. So it's 10:30. I hope that's kind of helped some of you out. I hope it's kind of answered some of your questions. If you do have any more questions about this, if you're watching this back afterwards, like tomorrow or later tonight or whatever it is, if you're watching this, you won't be watching it tomorrow. You'll be watching it now, won't you? So, but if you do have any questions after watching this, please drop them in the comments. I always come back and try and answer the comments in the live streams and all my other videos as well. Ask the questions. If I can answer them, I will. All I want to try to do is give you an opinion of somebody that I think maybe the game is designed for. There have been other reviews where people think it's not as deep as they wanted. It's not as RPG heavy as they wanted. For me personally, I feel like this game was kind of designed for the kind of gamer that I am. So maybe I've got a slightly different opinion to some others. So yeah, drop your comments or your questions in the chat and I will come back to them. Where we are now. Phil saying thanks for the show, pal. Paul says thanks for the stream. Nice bit of info. Thank you, buddy. Marcus is saying great show, Andy. Really piqued my interest. Thank you very much. Johnny Jambo, see you, buddy. Malkavian, good night to you. VJ says cheers, Andy. Always a pleasure. Thank you for your donation as well, buddy. Tiberius is saying night, mate. Off to stand under a shower on a cold cool down. I had a cold shower before I came on the live stream, mate, to try and cool down as well. Tim's off as well. Thanks, Tim. Thanks, Christian, as well. Good night, Douglas. Good night, Peter. Good night, Mark. Robert. It's getting like the Waltons now. Good night, John Boy. I will see you all in the next video. Thanks for watching.